Today, Aries was turned out with what I hoped would become his new herd. All geldings, not a mare in sight. The horses were fed right before Aries went out to cut down on the rush to meet the new guy. Aries met only a few horses at a time, which made it easier on him. One chestnut-gaited horse took a particular liking to Aries. I think he's got a little man crush. Once Aries had met a few of the locals, someone decided it was time to run. Picasso had been turned out at this point as well, and he and Aries led some of their new buddies in a romp around the shelter. After a quick little how to herd a mare demonstration by Aries, yes, Picasso played the mare in this scenario, everyone settled down to eating dinner, sharing peacefully. Ever since going to the Californios ranch roping competition, I have been longing to get a McCall saddle. These are beautifully made, traditional Western saddles. I was fortunate enough to find a McCall saddle dealer in my own backyard. Maya Olafs is an official McCall saddle dealer. Since I hope to get one of these saddles for Aries, I asked her to give me the scoop on these amazing saddles.
Some of the saddles that McCall Saddle Company makes. I'm a sales rep for the company. Right here in front of us we have a Pendleton Light, we have a Mile Maker, and we have a custom Lady Wade. The differences between these saddles are visible, but there are a lot of differences that are not visible as well. And you can see the difference in the seat of the slick fork versus the saddle that has swells. You can see that there's much more room for your leg, and there's much more room for you to maneuver your leg to put it where you would like it to be for whatever particular maneuver you're doing on your horse at that time. You're going to notice on these two saddles that we're looking more closely at a large difference in the size of the horn. The difference in the size of the horn is a roping difference, and that is when you are handling cattle and you want to be able to work the cattle with as least amount of stress as possible on the cattle, you want to be able to let your rope run freely and still have control of the rope without having your horse take as much of the jerk or the pressure. That is why this particular Wade has a larger diameter horn. It is specifically for roping and cattle events. It is not for aesthetics. There is an actual purpose for it, and it is to better handle your rope with less friction, better control, less jerk on your horse, and more room to let your rope run. The saddle that we're going to be looking at is more of a traditional Western horn. This is on the lighter weight saddle, and part of the reason that this has a smaller horn is just to simply help cut down on the weight of the saddle. You can still rope on this horn. It is structurally sound to do so. However, you will notice again with the smaller diameter of the horn, your horse is going to feel more jerk. You're going to have to dally more times to get a solid hold on cattle, and it's just not as user-friendly for the rider or the horse to have a smaller horn. You can see from Katie sitting in the saddle, there is a natural line between her hip and her heels. And if she is to put her feet in the stirrups, you can see that that line is much more direct. The Wade style or the slick fork style saddle creates a nice seat pocket so that you are secure in the saddle, but you don't feel locked or trapped. It gives nice contact. It allows your leg to elongate to be able to get better contact with your horse. And it just is a very nice feel for both you and for the horse without having extra leather or built up or padding getting in the way. These are saddles that are made to be ridden in all day long. I do have quite a few friends that buckaroo for a living, and they're in the saddle from anywhere from 10 to 16 hours a day, and they all ride slick fork just because of the comfort, the usability, and the fit on the horse. So you can see, again, the cantle is coming up nice, securing her pelvis in there. She's not pushed too far forward. She's not put in an awkward position. Her pelvis is tight. It's tilted forward slightly so that it's underneath her, and her leg is dropped directly right beneath her hip so that she has optimum contact with her horse immediately. Katie was on a horse that decided to start misbehaving. You can see from the bucking rolls how closely they do hit the top of her thigh so that it would then lock her in position and help her keep her seat so that she had a better chance of staying on top of the horse instead of coming off at any point in time. But they by no means get in the way of the contact that she has with the saddle. They're just simply there to help guide her in the event that she needs it. This is a Pendleton Light, or a Lady Pendleton, that Katie's sitting in now, and you can see that the cantle is much higher on this saddle. It's a much deeper seat. It's a deeper seat pocket in this saddle. This is a 16-inch tree finished out to a 15.5-inch seat. These are the same trees in all three saddles as far as how the tree is constructed. So you can still see that Katie has good balance. She's got a nice line between her hip and her heels. Her seat is underneath her and where it needs to be. Her thigh is forward and very much in contact with the horse. She's not in any unnatural position. Her pelvis is not tilted forward or tilted back. Her back is nice and straight, and she's ready to ride, ready to have good contact with the horse. With the saddle having swells in comparison to the other two saddles, you can also notice that there's a little bit steeper degree right here at the front of the seat, and that's to allow for the buildup of the swells. It's personal preference. Again, it still gives Katie plenty of room. You know that not that long ago, the general guideline and the general rule was that you wanted to have 2 fingers of width in between the front of the swells and the front of your thigh, and that was kind of the guideline on how saddles were fit. So much of it now is personal preference, but this saddle gives Katie plenty of room to ride, to maneuver without feeling trapped, and having also a nice seat pocket to be able to sit in and feel nice and secure. We use the timberline trees, and they are manufactured in a way and built in a way as to allow for flexibility and support at the same time, which is very hard to get both qualities in one piece of equipment. All of the McCall trees, whether they are semi-quarter horse, full quarter horse, or standard quarter horse, allow for a greater flare in the front of the bars, which allows for the heavy shoulder muscling. One of the things that I have noticed is a lot of the horses in this area, we're breeding bigger horses, we're breeding bigger bodied horses, we're breeding heavier muscled horses, and therefore we have to allow for that range of motion in the saddles that we're putting on their back. Very, very important to be able to have that flare on the front of the bars of the saddle to allow for that shoulder muscling. It also really helps to find that nice sweet spot, as I call it, where the saddle is just comfortably sitting. And that's something that's very evident to see when you first throw the saddle up on a horse's back without any padding. You'll notice that the saddle will fall where it wants to be. This here is what I'm talking about the flares of the bars. You can see how this area opens up, and that allows for the shoulder muscle and the pocket behind the shoulder muscle so that the saddle does not get in the way of the horse's natural range of motion.
I then asked Maya to explain how she goes about fitting a saddle to a horse.
I'll run my hand down the front of the bars of the saddle flat, and I need to be able to have clearance all the way down the front of the bars of the saddle so that I know that that horse will then have enough freedom of range of motion when the saddle is cinched up. What I do is I stand at the shoulder and I look down the channel of the saddle, and I want to make sure that directly down the center of the channel of the saddle there is absolutely no contact whatsoever with the horse's spine. We want to have ventilation and good movement, good access to that area. Do not want anything to get in the way of that. I will also make sure that the back of the saddle does not interfere with the horse's loin or kidneys. Some of these shorter backed horses, some of these bigger saddles can just be frankly too long for them. So I want to make sure that when the horse is moving that there's absolutely nothing interfering with his range of motion behind as well. If criteria are met, then I'll go ahead and put a thin pad on, cinch the saddle up, have it ridden in for about 20 minutes or so to be able to check sweat patterns. Also give the rider an idea of the feel and to see how the horse reacts. Most of the time the horses will tell us, more so than what we can even see, what does or does not work for them.
Maya has some amazing knowledge about McCall saddles and vaquero riding. I hope I can have her out soon to fit Aries for a saddle. Today I took the boys out and went to go check out the round pen. It's been quite a while since I did any liberty work with Aries. This is a beautiful, high-walled round pen with nice footing. Aries was a bit concerned about not having a clear view out, so I walked him around each direction before sending him off on his own. He still lacks confidence in new situations. This is probably just his wild, cautious nature kicking in. It's nice to see that after no liberty work in about 2 months, Aries knew just what I was asking when I sent him out. Even on a lunge line, Aries doesn't like to get too far away. I am trying to get him to stretch his comfort level and work further from me, and stay relaxed. Maya said something to me that really made a lot of sense. She heard from a horseman that if you just ask your horse to get 1% better every day, you'd have a totally different horse in 3 months. But so often we get obsessed with getting something a lot better really fast. We forget to let the process be gradual. And by rushing, we actually make the learning process take longer. I like how Aries is offering to stretch his neck down while trotting. He does do this more readily to the right than to the left. Picasso is the perpetual babysitter. He wanted to check out what we were doing, so he popped his head over the wall and then promptly lost interest. I wanted to see how Aries would do at the canter. Still tight, but remember back when he wouldn't even pick it up? Big difference. We didn't spend very long in the round pen. I wandered around some to see if Aries would stay with me, which he did. He is much more bonded to me now. I wonder how that will affect our riding. Notice how their steps are exactly the same? I took the boys for a walk up the trail that leads to the gallop track. Shortly, I hope to be able to ride Picasso while ponying Aries on that track, so that we can start having some fun and exercise for both of them. Lone Willow is a very peaceful environment. The horses are all happy and quiet, and the people are friendly. The boys are very lucky to have such a nice place to call home. I turned the boys back out into their 10-acre pasture and headed out into the pasture myself. To my surprise, Aries settled in right behind me as I walked out. Even now, Aries is still his own horse. He doesn't follow the pack too much. I feel very honored each time he chooses to spend time with me and follow me around. Quite a nice way to end the week.